Left of the box. This is from City News. NDP uses BC United research to mount attacks on crackpot BC Conservatives. Almost 200 pages of research on BC Conservative Party, which sources within BC United confirm were compiled before the party dropped out of the British Columbia election campaign to support their former rivals, have come back to haunt the new alliance. The New Democrats are using the leaked documents to depict BC Conservative candidates as supporters of what they call crackpot conspiracy theories, including that Donald Trump won the 2020 U.S. presidential election and that January 6, 2021 riot at the U.S. Capitol involved Antifa in disguise. Two BC United members, speaking on condition of anonymity, confirmed Saturday that the documents were the results of research compiled by the party before the election campaign began, but denied being the source. The idea that we have people running for the Conservatives in BC right now that are like, oh yeah, Donald Trump totally won that election, and all the rioters you saw on Jan 6th, Antifa. Here's the Press Progress article about it that goes into a lot of detail. So, leaked dossier reveals 200 pages of conspiracies and controversial statements from John Rustad's BC Conservative candidates. British Columbia, soon-to-be defunct centre-right BC United Party, prepared a nearly 200-page dossier of opposition research on John Rustard's far-right BC Conservatives. And now the entire document has leaked onto the internet in the middle of the election campaign. Wow. So there used to be two conservative parties in British Columbia. Now, often what happens when you have two conservative parties that actually threaten to split the vote, one will drop out. They tend to work a lot better towards their goals than the left does. And so one will drop out. And in this case, it was the one that was closer to the center that dropped out. And so before an election, as is normal, different parties will do oppo research on the other candidates. And so the BC United Party had done oppo research on the Conservatives. And some of the United Party are now candidates. Some aren't part of it. Some are probably just, they're conservative, but not far right-wing nut jobs and are concerned about what's happening. And so all that oppo research that they did before they kind of dropped out has been leaked. Wow. The document, which was uploaded to Scribd and posted, I don't know if I said that right, and posted on social media by former BC Liberal MLA and current radio broadcaster Jas Joel, focuses largely on past statements posted on social media by BC Conservative leader John Rustad and his party's candidate. So Jas Joel says, sorry, I had an uploading issue. Here's the full oppo research that was conducted by BC United. I recently received it. You can decide whether it matters to you. The senior BC United sources confirmed to Press Progress that the oppo dossier shared by Joel is authentic, but qualified that it was an earlier draft of a working file and therefore doesn't contain everything. Wow, so there's even more. So what they present, it's worse. Metadata associated with the PDF lists BC United lead researcher as the primary author of the dossier. During elections, political parties typically gather information about their opponents, something which is called opposition research or oppo. While this term is sometimes used derisively, this material can also shine a light on problematic or dangerous beliefs held by candidates for public office. The material contained in the BC United oppo dossier ranged from serious to strange and offer insights into the thoughts of those who want the power to create or repeal laws that could impact the public in ways informed by such mindsets. For example, the dossier included transcripts from a video blog featuring Sheldon Clare, who I've been talking a fair bit about. He's the gun nut. The BC Conservative candidate for Prince George North Caribou that BC United claims that shows him comparing Canada to Germany 1933 and willing to commit insurrection. Wonderful person to have as a candidate. A close reading of the transcript shows Claire discussing gun control and stating that what's happening in this country right now is almost akin to static oppression. Claire states that Canadians need to be willing to take up action that's necessary to stand up for themselves in the face of status tyranny. I know I'm saying that wrong. Yeah, so you have somebody basically saying if they try to enact laws that I don't like, let's revolt. I'm all for a revolution, but a different kind. Canada turning into Germany 1933, willing to commit insurrection. That's just great having a candidate saying, you know what, I am willing to commit an insurrection. Does that give me a pass to become a candidate that I'd be willing to commit an insurrection against a democratically elected government? There is a risk of being a criminal, not turning guns in when asked, but I mean, that's what's happening in this country right now is almost akin to, I'm saying this wrong. My dyslexic brain is saying like statistic, but it's not that. There's no ick in it. Statist, oppression. And I know where I fit if it's 1933 and they're trying to break people and they're trying to segregate them and divide them. He's also the one that referred to himself as a minority under attack. I know where I sit and I know where my decisions are in that case, and I think people need to look in the mirror and answer that question for themselves. And they need to know they are not alone, that there are people that feel exactly as I do. Normally when you say that statement, it's like, and they need to know they are not alone. There are lots of people that feel exactly as they do is usually how that statement would go, as opposed to, no, they all feel the same as me. They need to stop being afraid, and they need to think for themselves, and they need to be willing to take any action that's necessary to stand up for themselves in the face of tyranny. If this is where country is going, we have a huge problem. If there's no political solution to our problems, that leads to a very scary path, which people may very well be forced to tread. And that was on his gun blog video. Wow. There's like so few gun-toting radicals like that in Canada, and I want to keep it that way. On the stranger side, the dossier include a photograph of Claire, who is former president of Canada's National Firearm Association, dressed in an outfit resembling a 19th century European colonial soldier stationed in occupied lands in Africa. BC United labeled this as potentially insensitive colonial costume with a gun. Potentially insensitive? Oh, look, potentially insensitive colonial costume. I would say it's definitely insensitive colonial costume there. Yeah, you know exactly what he would be doing back in the day. Other posting from BC Conservative candidates should raise questions about what kind of content they are consuming online, let alone their grasp on the reality. They're like Facebook candidates. Facebook memes have become candidates, conservative candidates in these elections. It's wild. Jordan Keeley, a BC Conservative candidate in Peace River North, appears in the dossier discussing what BC United described as government plan to eat bugs and control the weather. Oh, control the weather, you say? Wonder what kind of undertones are with that conspiracy theory. We do question if this is all planned, Keeley wrote in a 2023 Facebook post. I was right, it is all Facebook. They're going after vitamins and supplements right now, so we won't have access to them. Control the food so you control the people. Will you eat bugs because there's nothing else? Keeley's post, which linked a 2015 Global News article about Ontario cricket farm that hopes bugs are the future, echoes comments from BC Conservative leader John Rustad himself made in a speech at an event describing the Freedom Convoy, which he warned children would be forced to eat bugs. And we actually went over that before. So Keeley Farms government plans to eat bugs and control the weather. We do question if this is all planned, killing off the small farms, controlling where you get your food, or if you get food. They're going after vitamin supplements right now, so we don't have access to them. Can't see the news online now. Facebook did do that. They did stop linking to news here in Canada because of fights over royalties and money and whatnot. Control the food and you control the people. And just on a side note with that, when Facebook did that, it actually led to an explosion of fake news and all of this propaganda popping up because it filled the void that actual news had been covering. So will you eat bugs? Nothing else? Okay. And we know that they could seed and spray things in the air. What are they doing it for? Where's the information about the data to support continuing to do it? What are the unintentional or intentional harms from messing with the weather? Unpredictable weather extremes maybe, drought, fires. China is doing weather modification in an area larger than India soon, if not already. How are these people candidates? How do they stand a chance of winning? I guess another post from him. Will you stand up when you don't have food to eat? I bet you'll be too weak by then to fight back. What do you think? How can we fight back? How can we unite and take our lives back? If we don't stand up for new future generations, won't have a chance. If they kill off the farms, they control food, control people. What will you do? So another person that seems really keen on insurrection. And the thing that always gets me about these, generally speaking, white men, usually, not always, but predominantly white men, is they're not suffering. These are people who, generally speaking, again, not monolith, can afford to put groceries on the table, can afford their places, have their own homes. You know, their quality of life, it's usually pretty good. You know, they're not struggling with disabilities. They're not, being targeted as a minority. They're generally speaking well off. And they're the ones that are, yelling about being oppressed and stuff like that. And it goes back to the idea of people of privilege. When other people get that same privilege, it can feel like their privilege is being taken away. Like their rights and stuff are being taken away when you even out that playing field because other people now have those same rights. And it's like, they're just terrified they're no longer going to be at the top. That they're no longer going to be the people in control of culture and society and, the top of the social pecking order. That they're going to lose their white power supremacy. Mike Harris, that's not the Mike Harris and not the other Mike Harris, but this Mike Harris. So Mike Harris used to be Premier of Ontario, and his son is actually an MPP in Ontario, and his name is Mike Harris Jr. But a Mike Harris from BC, the Conservative candidate for Langford, is featured in a dossier touting dubious claims that it is possible to kill COVID-19 by simply blowing a hairdryer up one's nose. Blow dryers have heating elements and fan, explains a graphic Harris shared 3 years ago, which is a little bit more information on that one specifically right here. So I'm not going to read this whole article about it. People can read it themselves, but here is what that post had said. The viruses die within just a few minutes when exposed to higher air temperatures. The video explains the human body, when infected with severe virus, attempts to do this on its own by producing a fever. The very same process could be used with patients. If we could raise the temperature of the patient's sinuses high enough, the virus would die. The video suggests those experiencing symptoms should blow hot air up their nose with a hair dryer as a home remedy for COVID-19. Blow hot air up their nose. It's like blowing hot air up their ass. Like, it's just... The idea that you're just aiming a hair dryer in your face, your hair's blowing back, you're like, yeah, I'm curing COVID right here. As you dry out your sinuses and get nosebleeds. The common widely available handheld blow dryer used for drying hair contains heating elements and fan that can instantly deliver forced air treatments at or above the eradication temperature threshold for coronavirus. The video notes, take slow, deep breaths through the nose with the mouth closed for 5 minutes while allowing the heat to penetrate deeply into the nose and sinuses. Wow. Oh, there's a video on this? Okay. We're going to watch the video. We're going to watch the video.
Breathing deeply for just a few minutes in any of these hot locations will kill a high percentage of any coronavirus that happens to be invading the upper respiratory system. And a second or third exposure, about an hour apart, will kill the rest. No desert or sauna available? No problem.
No desert available for you to go hang out with on when you have COVID?
Common, widely available handheld blow dryer used for drying hair contains a heating element and a fan that instantly deliver forced hot air temperatures that will kill coronavirus even faster, much like a convection oven does.
Then why don't you just stick your head in the convection oven? You know, just do that. Just shove your head in the convection oven.
And because you can concentrate heat onto just the infected area of the body, the nose and sinuses, you can safely use this approach even if you already have a fever.
No, it's not safe. You know, forcing hot air up your nose, not safe. Like, it's just, you know, it's meant to be moist in these areas. Like, how extreme would this get? Be like, well, this blow dryer isn't working. Why don't I just toss this vacuum cleaner into reverse?
Here's what to do. Step 1. Turn the hairdryer to the lowest setting and then cup fingers over the air intake to slow the airflow and increase its output temperature. Step 2. With the other hand, use a spray bottle filled with water to frequently moisten the facial surface around the nose and mouth. The flow of
squirt, 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 squirt. Who believes this? Who? Using heat temperatures at 56 C, 133 Fahrenheit. That's what you have to get your nostril temperature to? Using a hairdryer sauna shows how to kill coronavirus at home in 15 minutes using heat temperatures at 56 degrees Celsius or 133 degrees Fahrenheit.
of hot air causes the water to evaporate, keeping the face and nose cool, while allowing heat to penetrate deeply into the nose and sinuses. Take slow, deep breaths through the nose with the mouth closed for 5 minutes.
Oh, and in case I don't, in case I need to make this clear, do not follow this advice. Disclaimer, I'm not promoting this advice. I'm not suggesting anyone should do it. In fact, I'm very much recommending you don't.
To minimize any discomfort, turn the blow dryer aside in between breaths so that warm air is directed toward the face and nose only while inhaling. The goal is to raise the inside of the nose and sinuses to the coronavirus kill temperature of 56 degrees Celsius or 133 degrees Fahrenheit during the entire treatment period. So use the highest temperature setting you can safely tolerate. Step 3. After pausing for 1 hour, begin another 5-minute hot air treatment. If no symptoms have appeared, 2 heating cycles per day should be sufficient for prevention. However, if symptoms have already developed, 5 of these alternating heating-cooling cycles per day are recommended until symptoms disappear. If widely used, this simple cold arrest hyperthermia therapy can help to halt any further spread of COVID-19.
Do not do this. Do not do that. Wow. And so that's what a BC candidate was putting out, but, he'll deny it. So this was said in those videos there, and so we'll just scooch down. In a statement to Press Progress, Harris confirmed the post appeared on his LinkedIn profile, but insists, I didn't post it. My staff probably thought it was going to help with the virus, Harris said. Wink, wink. How are these, You know, you have to pass a vetting to get in to be a party. So is there just no vetting to let these people get in? Like, or is this like a feature and not a bug to have the most like conspiratorial nut jobs in their party? Other BC Conservative candidates appeared to share conspiratorial beliefs with some of the most hardcore far-right mega Trump supporters in America. In a section of the dossier titled Crazy Views on U.S. Politics, BC Conservative Surrey White Rock candidate Brian Tipper is included in BC United for sharing memes denying that the storming of the Capitol on January 6 and claiming it was a false flag operation by elites. Another section of the dossier shows Cowichan Valley, BC Conservative candidate John Curry responding to former U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton on Twitter earlier this year. "You lost and Trump won," Curry wrote, in adding that Trump won twice, soon 3 times, an apparent reference to denials that the 2020 election results was legitimate. Actually replied to Hillary Clinton. Not that she would have ever seen it, but my God. To be that devoted to that conspiracy theory, to be like, Hillary, Trump totally won. And that's the screenshot of the tweet right there. "You lost, Trump won 3 times soon. You are a corrupt liar who should be indicted and tried." Elsewhere, Curry is listed as having liked a 2023 tweet from US-based MAGA account about QAnon-adjacent theory about elite pedophile ring operating in Hollywood. Funny how you can't see what people liked on Twitter anymore. So this is the screenshot of the tweet. "Do you support Mel Gibson's plan to expose an elite pedophile ring operating at the heart of Hollywood system? Yes or no?" In February 2024, tweet, Buckley Valley Streakin' BC Conservative candidate Sharon Hartwell replied to Twitter account calling Trump Army, asking if Democrats cheated and the President Donald Trump won the election. And she replied, yes. BC Conservative Langley Abser Harmon Bang. I don't have the disclaimer on here, but when I go back to the main screen, I'm throwing that disclaimer back up about how I can't pronounce people's names, who makes numerous appearances throughout the 200-page dossier, is documented in 2022 tweeting promoting a widely debunked far-right conspiracy falsely claiming January 6 insurrections were actually undercover members of Antifa. Antifa broke into the Capitol on January 6 too, he wrote, but if you read the Jan 6 report, you would know Antifa dressed up as Trump supporters, and that's him there, and that's a screenshot of his tweet. The dossier also includes a 2012 photo posted on Instagram by him featuring a photo of himself holding a bottle of Herminator beer, which he describes as I don't want to say that. That's very grapey. This man is a candidate. Just going to highlight what this says. I don't even want to say it. That is disgusting. And very, very grapey. Online conspiracies popular with Canadian far-right about climate change or COVID-19 public health measures are recurring themes throughout the dossier. Elsewhere in the dossier, BC United highlights conspiratorial posts from Kelowna Centre BC Conservative candidate Christina Lunn. In a Facebook group called Reject New World Order BS, Lunn posted a message referring to the 15-minute city conspiracy, asking group members if they heard that a test city in the UK had not fared well. Oh my God! It's every conspiracy theory. 15-minute cities are a good thing, actually. It's just like every conspiracy theory is on this dossier, including ones I've never heard of, like shoving a blow dryer up your nose. In other postings, BC United says Lowen promoted conspiratorial content railing against UN world order and claiming banking was a WEF plot, referring to far-right conspiracies about World Economic Forum. And there you can see the post. There's more. This is a long article. Wow. Chris Sankley, a BC Conservative candidate for North Coast Haida Gwaii, appeared in section of the dossier highlighting conspiratorial beliefs about climate change. BC United highlights a December 2023 tweet which shows Sankey claiming the climate agenda is a WEF depopulation conspiracy. A leading climate scientist, and so this is a post from him. A leading climate scientist previously engaged with the World Economic Forum has made a controversial claim asserting that WEF's environmental agenda is actually a guise for depopulation the planet under the pretense of ecological preservation. I thought fossil fuel. Another one. Vancouver Point Grey BC Conservative candidate Paul Ratford is featured amplifying message from far-right People Party candidate calling for the arrest of Dr. Bonnie Henry. So this is an anti-vaxxer from the looks of it, because nobody was forced to take an injection against their will. Coerced, definitely, but not forced in Canada. Nobody was pinned down and a needle shoved in their arm. And that's his posting there. In November 2023, the thing is that this wasn't even long ago. Like, these are some long ago posts from when they were young, naive, and didn't know things, part of a rabbit hole or something. This is yesterday. This is what's on their mind right now. This is who they are. This isn't some like, oh, I've grown up since this. No, this is who they are right now. In November 2023, BC Conservative candidate Tara Armstrong from Kelowna Lake Country Coldstream replied to a tweet from Vancouver radio broadcaster Jody Vance asking our audience to listen to a doctor who specializes in vaccines. So Jody had tweeted out, "For much loved friends who've told me I'm going to pass on the latest vaccine, while your choices are yours, please do read this thread." And Tara replies, sharing Pete Holtz, I see, do you realize he's bought and paid for by Big Pharma, flat out refuses any debate about the risk versus reward of these injections. He's a total fraud. You might want to study up a bit before pushing this kind of narrative. There's more. Other postings by BC Conservative candidates suggest consolation of resentments about problematic beliefs about women, gender, and sexuality and race. Brian Burgut, the BC Conservative candidate in Vancouver Langara, appears numerous times associated with sexist and misogynistic statements that suggest a consolation of resentments of, okay, just doubled up that. So he, whose website bio indicates he has embraced married life, is quoted in 2024 tweets criticizing women who choose not to breastfeed their infants. And he says, I really just can't with this insane nihilism. You fucking decided to have a baby, act as a fucking mother. Jesus Christ, get your priorities right. But of course, Reddit thinks it's just my body, my choice decision. Some people don't have the ability to breastfeed. And yeah, it is my body, my choice. BC Conservative Party spokesperson Anthony Cook is on the record stating that he would personally resign if his friend, that guy, was ever removed as a candidate. The BC Conservative candidate in Prince George Falmouth Rosalind Bird is featured in the dossier promoting anti-LGBTQ+ views. Not shocked. Earlier this year, Bird shared a Rebel Media video from the account Anti-Woke Canadian describing Pride supporters as groomers and claiming the government wants to castrate kids. Wow. And you know what? This falls under hate speech. In Canada, you can't call queer folks groomers just because that's actually a hate speech law. So, yeah. You can see here she retweeted this. Anti-woke Canadians, nothing rallies, a bunch of groomers like the government saying can't castrate kids anymore. Absolutely disgusting and beg. Danielle Smith, don't give in, and absolutely disgraceful that Pierre doesn't have her back. Oh, Pierre definitely has her back on this one. Numerous postings from BC Conservative candidate Paul Ratford are included in the 200-page dossier, including one criticizing Vancouver Canucks of use of pride-themed practice jerseys. This is what you are proud of. Violent, antisocial trans extremists increasingly define the movement. Be careful what you endorse. And that is a screenshot taken out of context. Exactly, there's nothing to be proud of. Ratford, whose Vancouver Point Grey riding, in the same as where the University of British Columbia is located, has also called for defunding UBC on the basis that School of Kinesiology hired a professor who area specialization is race and ethics. We don't need to defund the CBC. We need to defund UBC, race, ethics, and physical culture. Tim Telman, BC Conservative Canada, and Victoria Beacon Hill is included in the dossier for a tweet replying to City News story about public reaction to white supremacist daycare that advertised itself as whites-only space for proud parents of European children looking to escape from diversity. So for all those people who don't think Canada is a racist country, whites-only daycare. Gross, Thielman replied, adding, will the Victoria Police Department be investigating the racially segregated social clubs in Victoria? Thielman included a link to the University of Victoria's BIPOC Support Hub, an organization that provides community support to students who are Black, Indigenous, or people of color. Yeah, because, white nationalism and having white spaces only is the exact same as having support for BIPOC. Last month, BC United leader Kevin Falcon surprised everyone, including his own MLAs, announcing his party would fold and effectively merge with Rustad's five-seat BC Conservatives, a party previously relegated to the fringe of BC politics, receiving only 1% of the vote during the last election. Who the fuck paid him off, and how much did he get? Wow. As part of the terms of the BC United to stand down, Falcon said BC United candidates would run under the BC Conservative banner, and all candidates would be reevaluated under an improved vetting process. So these are people who have been re-vetted. Okay. Despite this, only several BC United candidates actually joined the BC Conservatives. A number of former BC United candidates are currently running as independents. If you are in BC, you need to vote in the provincial election. Because I'm not done with this yet. So this is from Mo Amir. In an interview with former People's Party candidate Laura Lynn Tyler Thompson, Rustad espoused the belief that climate narrative is part conspiracy to reduce the global population. We have video of the whole depopulation climate change conspiracy theory.
For some reason, this narrative about climate, it wants to reduce this, and I can only put it to the fact that somehow they think that we need to reduce the world population. It's sort of an anti-human agenda, and I just, like I say, in good conscience, I cannot stand up and support that. And quite frankly, I think if people around British Columbia and Canada knew this was what the agenda was, they wouldn't be supporting it either. And everybody I talk to, they have the same sort of response. They go like, oh my God, how could we as a country, how could we as a province want to actually do these things?
Wow, I am so happy to hear you talking like this because so few politicians seem aware. We have had people talking about depopulation out loud, including Anthony Fauci and Bill Gates. And you kind of think that's got to be some kind of joke. But when you...
Like I always say, the right is very good at cross-border solidarity. They're very good at building off of each other's conspiracy theories, supporting each other. And I struggle to get onto leftist shows to help build that same solidarity across borders. Because a lot of people on the left in the States, it's not a monolith, don't see why it's important to cover Canadian politics because American politics is so much bigger, which is true. But you see a lot more cross-border solidarity down in the States with right-wingers up here in Canada, and this is a result of it. Look at these candidates. They prop each other up. They support each other. There's probably a lot of funding going to each other. Like, part of the reason why, when I got onto Rebel HQ for TYT, that was part of my goal, was to build more cross-border solidarity on the left. But, like, every time I even call into the Majority Report, I can see it in the chat. People saying, why should we care about what happens in Canada? You know, none of the hosts, like, you know, Sam and Emma seem very interested in what I'm usually saying. But in the chat, you can see a lot of it, like, it doesn't matter, Canada doesn't matter, we don't need to hear this, get off the... Like, I've seen those comments, I don't care about them personally. You know, there seems to be a lot more reluctance on the left to actually build that cross-border solidarity, I find. Which, you know, is detrimental to our cause, because look at how much it is benefiting the right. We should be able to do this too.
You start seeing that all these food processing plants across the world have been somehow starting on fire. And then you see some of the world events that we faced this last 3 years, and the global push to, with the nitrogen and carbon and reducing your animals, you begin wondering, you know, with the UN Agenda 2030, I'm not certain if you know about that, but it does seem to lead to a concerted effort that's not very people positive, you know?
It's anti-civilization.
It's not. You know, a lot of the movements around the world, even ones that are going, it's not anti-civilization, it's anti-white supremacy. But that threatens his civilization, her civilization. I'm not done. I'm not done. So this is from the BC NDP Twitter account. John Rustad candidate is spreading conspiracy theories about vaccines causing AIDS. There's everything. Every conspiracy theory possible is being carried in this party. To the point that the vaccines, oh, it's not autism they're causing, it's AIDS. With views like this, Rustad would drive away doctors and nurses, not recruit more.
Agree with your candidates? And John, I'm going to ask you this question. You have a candidate on the North Coast. His name is Chris Sankey. He's tweeting out that COVID vaccines cause AIDS. So do you agree with your candidates? Like, do you find that acceptable that your candidate would do that? How would you recruit? And I know, you know, I just want to make sure that you know that this is a real thing. I'm going to pass you a copy of the...
So Chris Sankey, who we talked about in that last article, is quote tweeting, Canadian government admit 74% of triple vaccines vaccinated now have VAIDS. So they're calling it VAIDS. In startling new information coming to light, many people who got the mRNA vaccine in Canada are now finding out their immune systems have been severely damaged. And he replies or quotes tweet, no Canadians should tolerate this. Somebody asking what is VAIDS, and he says, vaccine-acquired immune deficiency syndrome, which is just cut off on the screen for you guys, but I can see it under here. Wow. I have been vaccinated like 6 times. I don't have this. No one who's been vaccinated has this. People's immune systems have been crashing lately, but that's usually from repeated infections of COVID, not because of the vaccine. Wow. All of them. All the conspiracy... Like, I didn't even hear about this one. Like, these are new conspiracy theories to me that I never knew existed and wish I never knew existed.
The tweet right there. And how do we recruit the doctors and nurses that we need? If you've got candidates out there that want to sit around the cabinet table, that want to represent their communities, they say that COVID vaccines cause AIDS. And John, I'm going to ask
I don't need to read over this entire article, but I want to show it so that people can look it up later on if you want to read it, because we've talked a fair bit already about the policies in BC about safe consumption sites, the forced treatment and whatnot. Just like it's bad under the NDP. Like the fact that the NDP proposed the forced treatment is horrendous. The Conservatives are far worse. Like they applaud it, they cheer it on, they would want to do it more. Drug policy experts say BC Conservatives' dehumanizing rhetoric about people who use drugs is going too far. They're eliciting emotional reactions like disgust, fear, and anger. Drug policy experts in British Columbia are calling out John Rustad, BC Conservatives, for weaponizing dehumanizing rhetoric aimed at people living in Vancouver's downtown East Side neighborhood. One of the party's top candidates recently compared people who use drugs in downtown Eastside to stray animals, while the party itself has been posting inflammatory videos using exploitive footage of people using drugs in public to score political points. And I covered this story, the stray animal comparison one, in the live stream where I was talking more about BC politics again. Guy Felicia, a Vancouver-based harm reduction and recovery advocate, says this kind of rhetoric only serves as a way to justify coercive policies like involuntary care for people who use drugs. BC Conservative candidate Eleanor Strucko recently faced criticism for suggesting people who use should be rounded up. So yeah, that's what I covered in the last one. And it looks like Guy is replying to that when she mentioned that song, The Arms of an Angel, and was singing that song. I was just appalled, Felicia told Press Progress. I was like, is that a joke? That's not funny. What they're mentioning as well is rounding up people and putting them in forced treatment, and it can cause catastrophic damage to people's lives. In Strucko's full speech at the Freedom House in August, she mentioned that she was downtown to visit business, which had been impacted by street disorder due to nearby SRO. Felicia said this demonstrates that BC Conservatives' focus is not on improving the lives of people who use drugs, but on demonizing them instead. She goes down there to see a business because her narrative is really policing instead of supporting people. The frustrating part about it is that they are seriously focused on criminalizing people who use substances and criminalizing people who struggle with addictions. Felicia said, adding that they are talking about criminalizing people for what they are coping, for the way they're coping and using substances to distract them from the underlying issues of trauma, verbal abuse, physical and sexual abuse. Felicia said that forcing people into treatment will further push them into isolation and make them afraid to reach out for support. What that will do is cause people to reverse, which will not make people reach out for support. Felicia added, if you look at the Conservative platform, as well as talks about basically the shutdowns of supervised consumption sites and harm reduction services and making things more challenging for people to access. So the BC Conservatives then shared a post alluding to the video while using an image of a child with an ice cream cone for comedic effect. An election ad shared on social media by BC Conservatives included footage filmed inside a Port Alberni Dairy Queen showing two individuals using drugs outside. The BC Conservatives mockingly wrote, "What's your favorite flavor? Vanilla, chocolate, meth." The BC Conservatives then shared the post alluding to the video while using an image of a child with an ice cream cone for comedic effect. This was directed at drug users and advocates, but it's accurate across the board. They're eliciting emotional reactions like disgust, fear, and anger to prevent desperately needed public policy discussions we've never had, Ward told Press Progress. If you don't want public drug use, you need to implement public indoor spaces to use drugs, Ward said. Governments realized this when there was alcohol prohibition. We don't want public drinking, so we have government licensed indoor liquor establishments, aka public houses or pubs. Indigenous-led campaign against gender-based violence tells John Rustad to stop wearing its pin. A grassroots campaign to end gender-based violence has sent a letter to BC Conservative leader John Rustad for informing him it is withdrawing permission for him to wear its symbol. The Moose Hide campaign is an Indigenous-led effort that began in BC more than a decade ago to engage men and boys in ending violence towards women and children. According to the organization, moose hide is a symbol of taking a stand against violence and undoing the effects of residential schools. Supporters often wear a small square patch of moose hide pinned to their lapel. Rustad has frequently worn the symbol to show his support for the Moose Hide campaign. CTV News has obtained a copy of the letter to Rustad from the campaign's co-founder, spokesperson Raven Laserte. Elected leaders have a unique level of responsibility, accountability to uphold public standards of respect, including the respect for Indigenous peoples and those along gender continuum. Ravine wrote in an October 1st letter, "It is our position that you are not upholding these standards." CTV News has reached out to Rustad through the BC Conservative Party for comment on the issue raised by the Moose Hide campaign and the AFM, but it's not yet received a response. Not shocking. Wow. Oh. If you're in BC, if you know anyone in BC, vote. If you're in BC, you need to go out and vote. If you know anyone in BC, you need to get them to vote. This is wild. Absolutely wild. That these candidates are allowed, like some of them are breaking hate speech laws, but they're allowed to run as candidates. These wild conspiracy theories. Like when you have people who are candidates for a party running and platforming these conspiracies, it gives those conspiracies legitimacy. That you have public officials, potential, leaders of provinces spewing this nonsense without any pushback. It gives all of those conspiracy theories legitimacy. If any of those candidates win, it gives those conspiracies legitimacy. Because this person won on the fact that they thought vaccines were giving people AIDS. So if he got in with that, well, then maybe there's some truth to it. Like, I know Canada has been going a little downhill recently, but this is like off a cliff. Like, the Conservative Party used to have rational people involved with it. Greedy fuckers, but rational. This is just like the more crazy you can get, the more far-fetched you can get, the better. The Conservatives are ripping this country apart. And so many people are just passively sitting by and allowing it to happen because it requires energy to just even stop the momentum. Like I have this thing where I try to build cross-border solidarity, where I say, Americans look at what Canadian citizens have and say, we want that. Well, Canadian politicians look at what American politicians get away with and say, we want that. And right now the politicians are winning, that little balance. Right now Americans are fighting to get health care. But what is worse, fighting to get something you don't have or passively sitting by and watching that thing disappear and do nothing and have a good representation of what's waiting for you should you not act right there in your face. Like, I don't know if I can ever forgive people for just passively sitting by and allowing what these conservatives are doing.